Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to focus on the subject of the Inspector General process. And as we know, the Inspector General reviews the processes and procedures of the Capitol Police from time to time, makes recommendations on areas where we might need to see improvement. And then, of course, we track and you all, as a board, track implementation of that improvement. And I'd like to talk a little bit more detail about how that happens and the status of some of those improvements. Last week, we had Inspector General Ron Russo testify in front of our Oversight Subcommittee in the House Administration Committee. And he shared with us that some of the Inspector General's recommendations had been designated as closed, even though there had been some internal modification to what exactly was changed or improved or implemented. We have heard and have been tracking closely in this committee the progress of those changes, implementation of the Inspector General's recommendations, and of course, our shared interest in ensuring that we are equipping and implementing the best practices that we can identify for our Capitol Police. So Inspector General Russo stated that some of these recommendations may have been essentially marked and reported as completed because they were moving in the right direction and they met the spirit of the recommendation. In essence, the recommendation itself, the thing that needed to be fixed or was recommended to be fixed, had been altered in some way, but nonetheless marked as closed. And while we certainly appreciate the Capitol Police Inspector General bringing this to our attention, we want to be sure that we understand a little bit more about those modifications and that process. So, General Gibson, I'd like to start with you. Are you familiar with these Inspector General reports and the recommendations in them?
Yes, we are familiar with the IG's reports as he publishes them and the recommendations. I would say the IG's decision as to whether or not to close a recommendation and whether or not it's because it was fully met or a compensatory control has been applied is his decision, not the board's decision or the chief's decision.
Where a modification of any type is made, is that indicated, is that reported back to the board as something that was changed or modified?
So this is something that Mr. McFarland mentioned previously, where we have recently become aware that Mr. Russo, like his predecessor, has applied at times compensatory controls. And Mr. Russo has made a commitment to keep us informed when this occurs. We have quarterly updates at formal board meetings with the IG, and that's an ideal forum for us to discuss that and better understand his rationale, particularly in those places where he has applied some kind of compensatory control in his decision to close that.
Are you concerned, with his commitment to continue to keep you all informed in mind, are you concerned about the concept of compensatory controls and deviations from the actual recommendations that are made by the Inspector General?
So I think the concept of compensatory controls is not in itself disturbing. It is a practice that is applied by other IGs at times. I am not yet concerned about the compensatory controls that Mr. Russo may have applied in his decisions to close them, but certainly it's something that we'll want to continue to look at in our shared interest in that aspect of oversight.
And as part of your oversight role, will you all be making an assessment, an independent assessment essentially, of whether you think any modification, any compensatory control is still done in a way that truly does meet that objective, the objective of the recommendation in the first place?
So it's a hypothetical, but certainly our IG working group that is working closely to dig into the details of those reports, I would expect them to bring that to our attention should they find such an instance.
All right. And Chief Manger, anything that you would add on this subject and how you view this from an operational perspective?
So we very carefully document our actions, the IG's response to our actions, and it is logged in and it is available to this committee, to the board, and it gives specific detail about what actions we've taken. So if I want to say for the record that we are not we're not changing the target. I mean, we are complying with the recommendation. and it's solely the IG's decision whether to close it or not.
Thank
but
you.
It's all documented.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields back. Mr. Loudermilk's recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. General Gibson, I agree with something you said in your opening statement. I do think the board made a wise choice in selecting Chief Manger. I think he was an excellent choice and has done a lot to improve the security. Something else you said, though, was, yes, I agree that the Capitol is more secure than it was on January the 6th. The question is it as secure as it needs to be? And that's what my subcommittee is trying to get to identify the failures of January 6th, which unfortunately the Select Committee did not look at, and identify those to make sure that they're corrected so the general populace and the people that visit the Capitol can feel that, yes, it is as secure as it needs to be. I'm going to ask some questions about January 6th, understanding none of you were in your capacity or in your current job at that time, but as your capacity in your current position that you can answer those. There was a 2003 directive of the Metropolitan Police that prohibits their officers from being on Capitol Hill property without explicit approval from the Capitol Police Board. So, Ms. Gibson, your position as chair of the board, I'm going to ask you this. Do you know, are there any pre-existing agreements between Capitol Police and Metropolitan Police that allow them on campus without prior board approval?
Well, there are memorandums of agreement between the department and the Metropolitan Police, and there are instances in which they can come without the approval of the board, and specifically the legislation, which I appreciate, from 2021 that allows the chief to declare an emergency and call for that kind of external support without having to convene the Capitol Police Board for decision and discussion.
Well, thank you. Do you know, were there any pre-existing agreements in place on or before January 6th that also allows that?
Mr. Loudermilk, I'll be honest, I am very focused on improving the security of the Capitol today and moving forward, and things that occurred well before my tenure are not things that I've been focused on. I'm afraid I don't have that answer.
Mr. McFarland, do you know if that was in existence on January 6th, any previous agreements?
Sorry, I do not know.
Chief Manger?
I don't know either.
Okay. If it's possible, if somebody could look, that's very important for us. General Gibson, do you know, has there ever been a time that undercover agents, either federal or local, operated on the U.S. Capitol complex without Capitol Police Board approval or in compliance with some other agreement?
I am not aware of that occurring in my tenure on the Capitol Police Board.
Okay, thank you. Chief Manger, I'm not going to ask any questions about separations agreements, so I think that one's done for now. Who's Julie Farnham? Who is Julie Farnham?
She was a former employee who was the deputy director of our supervisor in our intelligence section.
Okay, so she's no longer working in the department. That's right.
Correct.
When she was here, was she working on a book while she was employed with the Capitol Police?
I know she's written a book. I don't know when if she wrote it while she was here or after she left.
When was her last day as a Capitol Police employee?
I can get back to you with that, but it's been a couple of months at least.
If you will, I appreciate that. Have you ever seen a copy or a draft of the manuscript?
I know that two of my staff have reviewed the book.
Okay. Mr. McFarland, have you ever seen a copy or a draft of that?
Yes, we have a copy for security review.
Okay. Same, Ms. Gibson?
Yes, my staff has also reviewed to make security redactions of sensitive security information.
And Ms. Rexroth?
I have not, but
you have not.
Yeah.
And I'm taking it that the review was for security sensitivity. General Gibson, who is Jennifer Hemingway?
Jennifer Hemingway is the Chief of Staff of the Senate Sergeant at Arms.
What was her role on January 7, 2021?
I believe at some point on that day, she probably became the acting Sergeant at Arms.
Yes, she was. Are you aware that on January 7th, as her role as acting Senate Sergeant at Arms, she called Ms. Pittman, Assistant Chief Pittman, and offered her the role as acting Chief of Police?
I have no knowledge of anything that happened on January 7th.
Have you ever discussed that with her?
No, I have not.
Do you know if the Capitol Police have any records of this communication?
No, I have no records of anything on January 7th.
Okay. Do you know if the Capitol Police has any records of the hiring of Ms. Pittman or Chief Manger?
Oh, I know we have copies of the hiring of Chief Manger. I was intimately involved in that action.
Okay. Fortunately, I see I'm out of time, and yield back. I'll submit the rest of questions for the record.
The